Praise Jesus Christ. Thank you. May God bless you, and may God do you good. May God heal you, heal your waters, and also heal your bread. Welcome. Today we want to share something with you, and I want to talk about power of vow. Power of vow. Praise Jesus Christ. When Jesus was speaking about vows, he said, do not swear, in Matthew chapter number 5 and verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath. Do not break your oath. But keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. But I tell you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstools, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. Simply let your yes be yes, and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. We are talking about power of vows. The same Jesus spoke again at a later time in Matthew 23 and verse 17. You bride, verse 16. What do you bride guides? You said, if anyone swears by the temple, it means nothing. But if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by his oath. You bride fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? You also say, if anyone swears by the altar, it means nothing. But if anyone swears by the gift on it, he is bound by his oath. You bride men, which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? Therefore, he who swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it, and he who swears by the temple swears by it and by the one who dwells in it, and he who swears by heaven swears by God's throne and by the one who sits on it. This is Jesus Christ himself expressing himself about vows, and he said, do not vow. But in Matthew 23 from verse 16 to verse 22, he now expresses himself deeply, saying, I have not said people not to vow, but let them vow appropriately. Let them vow in a manner that it is accepted. You start by asking yourself, what then is a vow? A vow is a solemn promise made especially to God. A vow is a solemn promise you make to God. We can say a vow is a binding commitment that you proposes to do to God. It is binding, so you cannot later on reverse it or revoke it unless you undergo the process of revocation. Praise Jesus Christ. Why are vows necessary in the people of God? People make vows any now and then. How do you make a vow? People are bound by vows that they make, because I've said vow is a solemn. It is a solemn, so it is a binding commitment. It's a solemn promise to God, meaning it is a binding commitment. It is a decree you make that is legally binding, that when it is not observed, it has very serious repercussions The people who come and tell the man of God, oh man of God, I will be your partner. That's a vow. I will be supporting you with the food. Man of God, I will be supporting you with the 4,000. Man of God, I will be standing with you in this area. You have made a commitment. You see it? That commitment, God pursues it. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 4. When you make a vow to God, do not delay in fulfilling it. Meaning, vows demands prioritization, demands urgency. Whenever you make a vow, it is not something you release later when you have done your things. The Bible says, do not delay. Do not delay. I do tell people, vows demands prioritization. It is the one that comes first before you do anything else. If you have made a vow, you must engage yourself to fulfill it quickly. For instance, you say the man of God will be supporting you with some certain amount of money. When you have put yourself in a vow, okay, that I will be, it is a commitment I've made. I will be supporting you with this. Then every month, before you do anything else at all, set aside that vow and remit it. Let it not be within your quotas. Now from there, start handling other areas. But if it is what comes later, after you've done all your things, just to see to it that you have done it, you fall under the anger of God. He says, do not delay in fulfilling it. He has no pressure in fools. He has no pressure in fools. So people who make vows, they delay in fulfilling them. They present themselves before God as fools. And God says he has no pressure in it, meaning you don't please God when you are a fool. It is better not to vow than make a vow and not fulfill it. Do not let your mouth lead you into sin. So vows are sources of sinning. And do not protest the temple messenger. Do not protest to your pastor. My vow was a mistake. Look at it. Why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hands? Why am I talking or speaking about vows? Because this is an area whereby you bind yourself and means of deliverance fails. He says, when you make a vow, don't go to your pastor and tell him, you know what, it was a mistake, I revoke it. He says, when you do that, you fail to pay your vows, God automatically becomes angry with you and he destroys the work of your hands. So vows are very powerful, that they have the power to reduce the work of your hands to nothing. Power of vows, there is positive and there is negative. He continued to say, he says, if you don't pay your vows, you walk with the anger of God. And number 2, God destroys the work of your hands. Imagine. There is a gentleman who came to me sometimes back last year and made a vow to me by swearing holding an offering with his hand. He said, I swear. I told him, do you know what you are saying? He told him, yes, I swear, I shall never eat my tithes. And the day I will eat it, may God see it and strike me. I told him, do you know what you're doing? He told me, yes, I mean it. I told him, then let me receive your offering of commitment. I received it. And then he was very faithful that whole month until he received some substantial amount of money. He felt some itching in his being that he is not under obligation to pay that vow of tithing. You know, tithing is a law, but now he put it in the form of a vow by declaring or holding an offering of vows in making his tithes. He didn't pay that tithe. What happened? Right now, as we are speaking, he has a court case. And I always tell him, you promised God on a solemn oath you will never use tithes of God. Never. And you told God, if I will do otherwise, Lord, act. So I always tell him, why can't you just go back to your vows? Because nobody pressed you. Vows carries certain powers, and they are very powerful. I shall teach you positive vows, but I wanted you to first of all highlight the negative side of vows. Malachi 1:14. Malachi chapter 1 verse 14. He says, cursed is the cheat who has acceptable meal in his flock and vows to give it. And vows to give it. Man of God, I will be supporting you with this, with the food, with the 5,000, with my tithes. You got that? I will be paying your rent. These are the things that I've experienced in my ministry. Somebody comes and tells you, from today, I'm the one who is in charge of your rent. And you ask that person, do you understand it? And then that person leaves you unnoticed without any explanation. There is a lady who did that to me. She did that to me. She came and told me, man of God, rent is my responsibility. And she left me in the middle of the road. I was being told that she is hospitalized in very serious condition. Why? She had acceptable males in her flock. And actually, she was a woman of tithing. She told me, I have not been tithing to God for many years, but now I want to recollect that by paying your rent until the day you own your own house. I celebrated so much. He says, when you don't do that, and he vows to give it, but then sacrifices a blemished animal to the Lord, he says you are under a curse. So vows, they attract the anger of God. The vows, when the unpaid vows attract anger of God, attract the work of hands are destroyed, and paid vows attract a curse. Here it is not written what kind of a curse it is. In Jeremiah 44 verse 25. Jeremiah 44 and verse 25. 44 and verse 25. The Bible says, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel says, you and your wives have shown by your actions what you promised when you said, we will certainly carry out the vows we made to burn incense and pour out drink offerings to the Queen of Heaven. Go ahead then, do what you promised, keep your vows. These were people who made vows to sacrifice to the Queen of Heaven. What do I mean by this? That the vows can be a leeway to demonic worship if they are not taken with care. That's why Jesus said, do not vow. He says, anything outside that is from the evil one. Or did we not read that? We read that. Simply let your yes be yes and your no no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Meaning, if you are not careful with the vows, you risk introducing to yourself heavenly beings worship. It is the heavenly beings that demands vows, because they know when you make a vow, you have bound yourself. That's what Jesus said. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything outside that is from the evil one. Meaning, here, Jeremiah is telling them, that vow you made, go on and fulfill it, because it is a vow of the Queen of Heaven. Proverbs 20 verse 25. Proverbs 20 verse 25. I'm just highlighting the bad side of the vow so that we can go to the good side of the vow. Everything that is good has a negative side. Proverbs 20 verse 25. It is a trap for a man to dedicate something rashly, and only later to consider his vows. He says it is a trap for a man to dedicate something rashly and only later to consider his vows, to revoke your vows. He says it is a trap. It is a trap. Vows, they are snares. They are traps. They are nets. Because they carry certain powers that demands their fulfillment. You come to me and tell me, man of God, I will be your partner. I will be partnering with you this way. And then you don't fulfill it. You are already in a trap that you don't have the power to come out of unless you fulfill your vows. You know, people, when they are so much soaked in spirit, you have to say, I swear, I will never get married. I want to serve God all the days of my life. And then later on, you have life demands that requires you to be in a marriage. Not remembering you made a vow to God. You enter into a marriage and it is full of chaos. And you say, marriage is a good thing. But if you made a vow which you have not acted on, you are in a trap. One day, my wife, when she was very young, I think she was telling me when she was in class 3, she said, I will never get married to a pastor. And she told her mother, I will never. Even if all men on earth will be pastors, let me remain unmarried. Then we came and married. And I became pastor. Later on, the day I started the church in my house, we started having a church of our own in the house. We were about 5 members or so. That is when she lost her job. We went through difficult times, and one day she was in so much pain. When I was praying for her, she told me, wait, I am reminded, I'm being told to revoke a vow I made when I was a young child. I had said I shall never get married to a pastor. So that vow is the one that is making our lives so difficult, so that we can divorce. For I had said I will not be married to a pastor. Vows are traps. Vow is a trap. Deuteronomy 23 verse 18. Deuteronomy 23 and verse 18. Vows, verse 18. What says it? You must not bring the earnings. Okay, that's a step of verse 17. No Israelite man or woman is to become a shrine prostitute. You must not bring the earnings of a female prostitute or of a male prostitute into the house of the Lord your God. To pay any vow. To pay any vow. Because the Lord your God detests them both. The giver and the vow. Vows, to pay them, they require your holiness. Whenever you make a vow and you are struggling with sexual immorality, it makes you detestable, and the vow itself is detestable. Verse 21, he continued to say, if you make a vow to the Lord your God, do not be slow to pay it. That's why I told you, vows demands prioritization. For the Lord your God will certainly demand it. That has really clean. Deuteronomy 23 verse 21. We are talking about power of vow. What does vow carries? It's just like a tithe. If you don't pay tithe, it has serious complications. If you pay tithe, it has its wonderful benefits. So the same case with the vow. That's why I've started on the negative side so that we go to the positive side. Praise Jesus Christ. Because you must know the both sides of the coin. This coin called vow. You must be able to know both sides so that you be very careful. You don't just go anyhow making vows. I will never leave you, I will never forsake you. Look at truth. Praise Jesus Christ. She made a vow and it worked for her. We shall come to that. He says, if you make a vow to the Lord your God, do not be slow to pay it. I'm telling you, child of God, if you have any vow you have made, it must be a priority above anything else. Why? For the Lord your God will certainly demand it of you, and you will be guilty of sin. And you will be guilty of sin. So unpaid vows makes a person guilty. Makes a person be condemned of sinning. But if you refrain from making a vow, you will not be guilty. If you don't make any vow, you are not guilty. Whatever your lips utter, you must be sure to do. You must be sure to do whatever your lips utter, because you made your vow freely to the Lord your God with your own mouth. That is why vows, no one compels you to make them. You make them freely out of your mouth. That is why God demands vows must be paid no matter what. You rats escape route. Vows, because you make them freely, you utter. Man of God, I will be supporting you with the food. I will be doing shopping in your house. And then you stop doing it. Whether the man of God did wrong to you or not, you did not make a vow to him. You made it to God. I will be supporting you with this amount of money. and then just something along the way, maybe the man of God did not do whatever you wanted, and you felt aggrieved. You stopped. You are not making the vow to him. You are making it to God. But you come to the man of God. They are going to the priest, and they will put themselves into a vow. Remember the Nazarenes. For them to become Nazarites. They were people who were put in the vow. That is why Jesus is called Jesus of Nazareth, because he's a child of a vow. Look at it here. Numbers chapter number 30. Moses said to the heads of the tribes of Israel, this is what the Lord commands. When a man makes a vow to the Lord, or takes an oath to bind himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but he must do everything he said. This is the law of vows. You don't just wake up and break it. You must do everything you said, without pity, without mercy. Whether the environment is conducive or not conducive, you are under obligation. When a young woman is still living in her father's house, make a vow to the Lord, or binds herself by a pledge, and her father hears about her vow or a pledge, but he says nothing to her, then all her vows and every pledge by which she bound herself will stand. But if her father forbids her, when he hears about it, none of her vows or the pledges by which she bound herself will stand. The Lord will release her because of her father, because her father has forbidden her. Look at that. So a vow can be stopped if your father has had you and it tells you that is a bad vow. It doesn't stand. But if he had you and he didn't say anything, actually his actions were like he approved it, then that vow stands. That is for an unmarried woman. You are there with a boyfriend, and you say, I will never leave you, I will never forsake you. Did your father heard you? Did he hear you say those words? No. That is why you went and got married to another man. And the vow you made to that other man is speaking in your marriage what they call gender-based violence. You get that? You are brutally treated because there is a vow that is speaking here. You are married to another young man. I will never leave you, I will never forsake him. And the man made the same vow. So even himself, wherever he is, his marriage is not working, because both of you are in the vows with each other, but you did not fulfill those vows, and there is no one who was there to tell you to revoke it or revoke it. And many people, we are bound with these vows that we made when we were youths. You just get somebody, you get so deep into interactions such that you are speaking and uttering statements, and you think they are just statements. I was just saying they are just statements. Who told you? The Bible says you did it willingly, under no compulsion. Therefore you must fulfill your wants, unless your father hand you and rebuked them. Okay, to a married woman, if she marries after she makes a vow, if she marries after she makes a vow, or after her lips utter a rash promise by which she binds herself. So you have made a vow, then you get married, and her husband hears about it, but he says nothing to her. Then her vows or the pledges by which she bound herself will stand. But if her husband forbids her, when he hears about it, he nullifies the vow that binds her or the rash promise by which she binds herself, and the Lord will release her. Have you, let me use this analogy of ladies. You made a vow with a young man, and then you were not married to her. When you entered into the new relationship, did you disclose all the vows you made to the former relationship to this new gentleman? If you don't, if you have never disclosed those vows, your husband cannot help you revoke those vows. They remain, they govern you, and they govern you with brutality. Because we say any vow that is not fulfilled comes with its good measure of tormentation. Any vow or obligation taken by a widow or a divorced woman will be binding on her. Single mothers, any vows you make, they are binding. If a woman living with her husband makes a vow or binds herself by a pledge under oath, and her husband hears about it, but he says nothing to her, and he does not forbid her, then all her vows or the pledges by which she bound herself will stand. If you are married and you make a vow, and your husband hears you saying so, and he doesn't stop you, doesn't question, that vow stands. It is the same case, meaning if you make a vow and your husband is not aware of that vow, there is nothing you can do to revoke that vows. It stands to fulfillment. It will govern you, because nobody compelled you. But if a husband nullifies them, when he hears about them, then none of the vows or pledges that came from her lips will stand. Her husband has nullified them, and the Lord will release her. So if you're a married woman and you made a vow to a man of God, and you wanted to break that vow, what you need to do is to send your husband to the pastor to go and revoke that vow to pastor. Even if that is not possible, there is no remedy but to fulfill the vow. Her husband may confirm or nullify any vow she makes or any sworn pledge to deny herself. But if her husband says nothing to her about it from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or the pledges binding on her. He confirms them by saying nothing to her when he hears about them. If, however, he nullifies them sometime after he hears about them, then he is responsible for her guilt. And then he says, if your husband, he is not even aware of your vows, he has never heard of them, therefore he doesn't say anything to you or say anything about those vows, they are confirmed. They are confirmed. They are demanding fulfillment day by day. But if one day he will come and hear them, do you know what happens? He himself will become liable to fulfill them. Verse 15. If, however, he nullifies them sometime after he hears about them, then he is responsible for her guilt. Your husband now becomes responsible for that vow. These are the regulations the Lord gave Moses concerning relationship between a man and his wife, and between a father and his young daughter still living in his house. Vows are dangerous. You don't play around with the vows. But vows, they are what? They are a dormant bomb that, if you remove the safety pin, carries the power that it turns around your life permanently. Let's translate the word there. In Psalms 1:16, someone. Now I want to teach you about the power, the positive power of a vow. Psalms 116. What do you get when you make a vow and you fulfill it? When you make a vow and you fulfill it. Psalms 116 and verse 11. Okay, Psalm 116 and verse 18. Let us read verse 14 first of all. He says, I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people. Verse 18. I will fulfill my vows to the Lord in the presence of all his people. I want to teach you about the power of fulfilling your vows. This author of this psalm says, I will fulfill my vows. Vows demands fulfillment. There is nothing you can do if you have made a vow and you have committed yourself to it, to run away from it. Look at it in Acts chapter number 18 and verse 18. Paul had made a vow about his hair. 18 and verse 18. But Paul stayed on in Corinth for some time. Then he left the brothers and sailed for Syria, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. Before he sailed, what did he do? He had his hair cut off at Cenchrea because of a vow he had taken. They arrived at Ephesus, where Paul left Priscilla and Aquila. He himself went into the synagogue and reasoned with the Jews. Power number one of a vow, it gives you ease of movement. Vows gives you ease of movement. You move without hindrances. The Bible says before he sailed, he shaved his hair because of a vow he had made. Remember, Samson, there was a vow of God. Okay. Samson, there was a vow of God on his hair. In Judges 13 and verse 5. Because you conceive and give birth to a son, no razor may be used on his head, because the boy is to be a Nazarite, set apart to God from birth, and he will begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of Israel, of the hands of the Philistines. Judges 16 and verse 17. So he told her everything. No razor has ever been used on my head, he said, because I've been a Nazarite, set apart to God since birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man. So you can see there are covenants that are in our hairs. But when you make a vow, and that vow is observed, it gives you power of movement, maneuvering power, maneuvering ability. You are able to escape. You are able to channel yourself through any quarters, and nobody hinders you in any way. And remember, Hannah made the same vow about someone, that his hair will never be shaved. And that is what you find with the Numbers chapter number 6. Numbers chapter number 6 and verse 1. Okay. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, if a man or a woman wants to make a special vow, a vow of separation to the Lord as a Nazarite, he must abstain from wine and other fermented drink, and he must not drink vinegar made from wine or from other fermented drinks. He must not drink grape juice or eat grapes or raisins. As long as he is a Nazarite, he must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, not even the seed or skins. During the entire period of his vow of separation, no razor may be used on his head. He must be holy until the period of his separation to the Lord is over. He must let the hair of his head grow long. Throughout the period of his separation to the Lord, he must not go near a dead body. Even if his own father, or a mother, or a brother, or a sister dies, he must not make himself ceremonially unclean on account of them, because the symbol of his separation to God is on his head. Throughout the period of his separation, he is consecrated to the Lord. You can see power of a vow. Number one, listen, it gives you maneuverability. Number two, vow separates you for God. When you make a vow, it is a form of ordaining yourself to God for God. Jesus Christ. Meaning vows have the power to sanctify and qualify you where you cannot. You can read the whole of it about the law of separation. Vow is a form of a separation. Okay, let us continue. You can read the whole story here about when you break a vow. Can you just read it? When you break a vow, what are you supposed to do? When you break a vow, there are penalties that comes with it to reinstitute the vow. If someone dies suddenly in his presence, thus defiling the hair he has dedicated, he must shave his head on the day of his cleansing, the seventh day. Then on the eighth day he must bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest is to offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering to make atonement for him, because he sinned by being in the presence of the dead body. That same day he is to consecrate his head. He must dedicate himself to the Lord for the period of his separation, and he must bring a year-old lamb as a guilt offering. The previous days do not count. Praise Jesus Christ. So when you see there are penalties that the vows, when they are broken, they demand. You don't just break a vow, it comes with the penalties. Hey, you can read the whole story. Verse 21 says, this is the law of the Nazarite who vows in suffering to the Lord in accordance with his separation, in addition to whatever else he can afford. He must fulfill the vow he has made according to the law of the Nazarite. Read Numbers 6:1 to verse 21 about the law of vows. There are penalties that are demanded when you break a vow, so that you may continue the vow. But now we are not talking about is a vow necessary? Are vows important? I will show you the people's lives that were transformed and that were changed by people who knew the context of vows. Ruth chapter number 1. Ruth chapter number 1. The Bible says in verse 16, but Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separate you and me. Ruth made a vow to Naomi. What did this vow give Ruth? Number one, she gave her adoptive spirit. Through this vow, she was adopted as an Israelite. She became a daughter of Naomi, not a daughter-in-law. Now she was now officially her daughter by adoption. Remember, God had told Moses, Moabites shall not be around in the assembly of God unto 10th generation. That's like over 5,000, because a generation is about 50 years. Multiplied by 10, that's about 500 years. And if you read it, even they are nearly to 200 years. But Ruth was able to come into the assembly of the blessed by making a vow to Naomi. So meaning vows carries adoptive powers. You are adopted where you could have been rejected. You get that? Where you could have been detestable, if you make a vow, the vow commands you be accepted. Number 2, this vow Ruth made gave her favor, because you can read chapter number 2. She was operating in favor, but we know, because she's a Moabitess, she was supposed to experience rejection. But when she made the vow, she experienced acceptance. She experienced favor. She was adopted as an Israelite, and then she gained favor. Number 3, what did she get? She obtained another chance. She got another chance. She was originally married. She was married to Maron, but when she made a vow, the vow presented her viable for marriage, and she was married to Boaz. Because when Boaz came, he stated the vow she made in Ruth chapter number 2 and verse 11. Boaz replied, I have been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland, and he came to live with the people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. The vow she made is the one Boaz referred to. Meaning, if you become good in fulfilling your vows, vow releases upon a person adaptability. Number 2, favor. You are accepted and received where you could have been rejected and detested. 3, you receive another chance. Vows gives a person another chance. You become viable again. You become viable again. That is Ruth. Another person made a vow. Jonah 2 verse 9. Jonah chapter number 2 verse 9. But I, in a song of thanksgiving, I will supposed to what I have vowed. What I have vowed, I will make good. What I have vowed, I will fulfill. Salvation comes from the Lord. Verse 10. And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah on the dry land. Jonah has been swallowed by a fish. When he made a vow to God, vow activated his deliverance. There are people who were swallowed by life. They were swallowed by challenges. They were swallowed by life circumstances. But if you're going to make a vow, that is the one Paul talks about in Romans 12 verse 1. When you make a vow, vow is the one that compels God to command that which is holding you, release you. Meaning vows by themselves carries deliverance power. The only thing you need to do is to articulate yourself to the law of vow. And number 1, the law of vow states it commands urgency. You don't delay. That vows are the last thing you do. When you have done everything, the vow is the one that you come to do later on. Meaning you don't give it the necessary requisite respect. Number 2, you make sure you don't abandon your vows along the way. You fulfill, he says, what I have vowed, I will make good. When he made a vow, God commanded the fish vomit him on the dry land, not even in the water. So if you are going to fulfill your vows, you are close to your deliverance. Psalms 50 and verse 14. Power of vows. Psalms 50 and verse 14. Sacrifice thank offerings to God. Fulfill your vows. Fulfill your vows to the Most High. Fulfill your vows to the Most High. And call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver you and you will honor me. Vows are answers. Vows are a secret to answer the prayers in the day of trouble. If you are a person that makes vows and you fulfill them, when the day of trouble comes and you cry to God, deliverance comes in handy. But if you're that kind of a person, this month you pay your vow, next month you are not there, that means you don't know even what you're doing. That is why when you come to the Lord, when you're in troubles, you see kind of God delays because he delays as you delay. God works the person according to the way they articulate themselves before the Lord. Let me, Deuteronomy 28 says, and verse 47, because you did not serve the Lord your God joyfully and gladly in the time of your prosperity. God demands, he says, cast is the one who does the work of God slackly. Jeremiah 48 and verse 10, a curse on him who is lax in doing the Lord's work. Vows demands urgency, and God says, if you fulfill your vows, call God when you are in trouble. TikTok, he delivers you that you may honor the Lord. And he says, thank you, Lord. Were it not you, I could have been doomed. Because the vows carries deliverance powers. Proverbs 7 verse 14. Proverbs 7 verse 14. I have fellowship offerings at home. Today, this is a prostitute. Today, I have fulfilled my vows. That is what she says. So I came to meet you. I looked for you and I found you. I've covered my bed with the colored linens for Egypt. I perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink deep of wrath till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves. Okay, verse 21. With the persuasive ones, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. Meaning, this woman has now been able to seduce convincingly this young man, because he said, I have fulfilled my vows. So, fulfill the vows releases the powers in a person to rule convincingly. A person that knows how to fulfill their vows, when they speak to you, you don't resist what they are saying to you. Are you a business person? If you make vows and you fulfill them, your customers don't resist what you are saying. Because there is something that is given to your mouth. He says, today I have fulfilled my vows. 21. With the persuasive ones, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. Meaning, if you are this kind of a person, and if you, let me put for instance a pastor that makes the vows to God and fulfills them. When you preach, people don't resist what you are saying. They are persuaded and they are convinced. Israel. Hey, I need that one. Help. Psalm 76 verse 11. Psalm 76. And now we have known that is what undaughterless wayward women uses. They make a vow. And they go and they pay it, and then they come and they face you. You don't resist them. A woman who has made a vow, you don't resist her. What about you are a pastor and you have made a vow and you have paid? You have fulfilled your vows. When you preach, people don't resist. They are completely convinced at what you say. Nobody questions your preaching. They says whatever you are saying is true. My God. Psalm 76 verse 11. Make vows to the Lord your God and fulfill them. Let all the neighboring lands bring gifts to the one to be feared. Let me repeat again. Make vows to the Lord your God and fulfill them. Let all the neighboring lands, when you have fulfilled your vows, what will happen? All neighboring lands shall bring gifts to the one to be feared. Number one, if you fulfill your vows, you develop bread. Yeah? People bread you. People fear you. Number two, people bring you gifts. Meaning, fulfill the vows are keys to people bringing you gifts of any kind and any form, as long as they are your neighbors. Make vows to the Lord your God and fulfill them. What will happen? Let all the neighboring lands bring gifts to the one to be feared. So number one, when you pay your vows, you develop bread. People fear you. So nobody prays around with you. Number two, people gifts you. People rewards you. That is the word. Vows unlocks rewarding system. So they are very powerful. They unlocks rewarding system. Psalm 66 verse 13. Psalm 66 and verse 13. I will come to your temple with the burnt offerings and fulfill my vows to you. And fulfill my vows to you. Vows my lips promised and my mouth spoke when I was in trouble. So vows defeats any trouble. We have seen that in Psalm 50 verse 14. When you are in trouble, make a vow to God and fulfill it. That trouble loses its power. That trouble loses its power completely. It cannot handle you, no matter how legal it is. You have made a vow, you have fulfilled it. The problem with believers is that we are very good in making vows. The vows we abandon are just the same time we made them. Vows demands fulfillment. When you are good in fulfilling your vows, you call God in the day of trouble and you shall see. There is a lady we were being told by a friend of ours. She went to a church and the pastor was asking people to take envelopes of those who will be supporting the man of God, and she took one of a pledge of 1,000, and she said, if God gives me a job, I will bring 1,000 to support this man of God with it. She went and got a job and she forgot. She was earning her salary, but even a shopping of 1,000, she could not do it. The moment she received her salary, there is a boyfriend who would come and will talk very nicely to her, talk to her. By the time she realizes The guy has escaped with the whole Hazari. They have gone to a orgy. She has paid for everything, and they have squandered the money. She went through this for a whole year until she said, no, I don't understand. She went to another man of God and she was praying. She was saying, I don't do anything to my salary. And the man of God told her, it's because there is an outstanding or unpaid vow that is speaking in your realm. Which one? And the man of God told her, remember, where you have ever made a pledge which you never paid. She remembered. She went to look for that man of God. She denotified him. He left that place and went far away where she couldn't. She tried to look for his number. She could. She went to the man of God. The man of God told her, now here, you have to do some work. You have to repent. Then number 2, you have to cancel that vow with a sacrifice. And then you have to pay that vow. That way, you will be released from that vow. And that's what she did. She went to a 3 days fasting. You get that? She came with a sin offering because she was guilty. And then she paid that vow to that now pastor. The man of God prayed to him. He prayed for her and she was blessed. And now she has a very wonderful marriage and she is doing quite well in her business. Vows are very powerful. When you call God in time of trouble, when you are good in your vows, God releases. Look at it in Isaiah 65 verse 1. Praise await you, O God in Zion. To you our vows will be fulfilled. Oh, you who hear prayer, to you all men will come. Who does the man of God says here? Actually, it is David. He says, when you make prayers or vows, God hears Israel. Praise await you, O God in Zion. To you our vows will be fulfilled. Oh, you who hear prayer, to you all men will come. So meaning vows are separate to answered prayers. When you make prayers of vows, God hears quickly. We shall come to that. You shall see it with Hannah. When she made a vow, vows are a secret to God listening to you. If you want God to hear you quickly, can you make a vow to him? A vow that you know you will surely fulfill. Yeah? He says, Psalm 61 and verse 5. He says, for you have heard my vows, O God. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. Why? He made a vow and God had it. Verse 8. Then will I ever sing praise to your name and fulfill my vows day after day. He says, when he made a vow, this was David, God gave him the heritage of those who fear his name. So meaning, vows qualifies a person to be a heir, to be a partaker, to be a possessor. When you make a vow and you fulfill it, you become a heir. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. So there is a heritage that is given to those who fear God. But David says, myself, I partook that heritage not through fearing your name, but through the vow I made. So vow can qualify you to partake a standard of others in Jesus' name. Praise Jesus Christ. Psalm 56 verse 12. The man of God continues to talk about vows. Psalms 56 and verse 12. I am under vows to you, God. I am under vows to you, O God. I will present my thank offerings to you. For you have delivered me from death, and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. How many things? 3. 3 things you get from a fulfilled vow. Number 1, you escape death. Untimely, premature deaths you escape. 2, my feet from stumbling. You overcome stumbling blocks on your way. Every stumbling block set before you, you don't falter on the way. You don't. So meaning, if you are experiencing some faulty movements, you don't have a stable walk of faith. You always stumble. You always backslide anyhow. It is the vow that enables your feet to walk from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. Meaning, vow ushers you into right of life. Vows ushers a believer into right of life. And you have seen it with Ruth. When she made a vow, she was ushered into the light of life, and she became the great grandmother of King David, and with extension, the great grandmother of Jesus Christ himself, just by making a vow, which she carried on. She did not denounce God there. She stayed under the wings of the God of Israel. Praise Jesus Christ. Psalms 20 verse 14. We had that. Psalms 22 verse 25. Psalms 22 verse 25. 22 verse 25 says, from you comes the theme of my praise in the great assembly. In the great assembly. Before those who fear you, will I fulfill my vows. Before those who fear you, I will fulfill my vows. This man, this David as well, he is speaking the Son of Jesus Christ. He says, before the great assembly, that is where I will pay my vows. Why? Because from you comes the theme of my praise in the great assembly. Meaning, when you fulfill your vows to God, God gives you a theme of praise. Meaning, He gives you a praiseworthy reason. Something that makes you celebrate God. Something that makes you rejoice in God. From you comes the theme of my praise. Therefore, I will fulfill my vows in the great assembly. Meaning, vows carries with them theme of praise. A reason to be happy. A reason to rejoice. A reason to celebrate. Are you lacking something to make you happy like Hannah? She made a vow. God gave her a theme of praise called Samuel, and she made a song in 1 Samuel chapter number 2. Kakabaganda iliboheshini. So vows are sources of the themes of praises. If you have never had anything in your life that is praiseworthy, make a vow to God and fulfill it. Job 22 verse 27. Job 22, the man of troubles, verse 27. You will pray to him and he will hear you, and you will fulfill your vows, and you will fulfill your vows. What you decide on will be done. You will declare a thing and it will come to pass, and the light will shine on your ways. He says, you will pray and he will hear you, and you will fulfill your vows. So meaning vows are a secret to God hearing your prayers. But he says, it is from there that you will decide something and it will be done. You declare a thing and it comes to pass. You declare a thing and it will come to pass. Whatever gives a believer that power is a fulfilled vow. When you make a vow and you endear yourself to fulfilling it, whatever you say comes to pass. 2 Samuel 15. I said I'm highlighting because it has always been preached to us. 2 Samuel chapter number 15 and verse 7 to 8. Look at here. 2 Samuel chapter number 15 verse 7 to 8. At the end of 4 years, Absalom said to the king, let me go to Hebron and fulfill a vow I made to the Lord. While your servant was living at Geshur in Aram, I made this vow. If the Lord takes me back to Jerusalem, I will worship the Lord in Hebron. The king said to him, go in peace. So he went to Hebron. Though we know Absalom was using it as a conspiracy to overthrow his father, but I want us to use this scripture spiritually. Absalom said, when I was living in Geshur in Aram, these are Arameans, I made a vow that if God will do what? Will take me back to Jerusalem, I will worship the Lord in Hebron. What does that tell you? Did Absalom get back? He had been banished for killing his brother Amnon, who had left her sister Tamar. Get that? Who had left her sister Tamar. Tamar was sister, direct sister to Absalom. But when he was banished, for him to go back to Jerusalem and be received by David his father, he made a vow. Meaning, vows carries restoration. Carries restoration. When you make a vow to God and you mean it and you do it and you fulfill it, that vow, it contains power to restore you to the privileges that you lost. Marital privileges, career privileges, ministerial privileges, and all that. If you make a vow, and you can see, he went to Hebron to worship the Lord there with his sacrifice, but for a wrong intention. But he fulfilled it, but with the wrong intentions. He went there to overthrow his father. I know that. But that vow he had made is the one that carried him all the way to Jerusalem and in the presence of King David his father. So vows with them carries restorative justice. They carries the ability to restore all privileges, all hierarchies, all rankings and possessions, and the goodness that comes with it. It is in vows. Oh, First Samuel chapter number 1, about our mother Hannah, our spiritual mother Hannah. First Samuel chapter number 1 verse 11. Let us read there. And she made a vow saying, O Lord Almighty, if you only look upon your servant misery, and remember me and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. Okay, verse 21. Okay, let us read verse 19. Early the next morning they arose and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home at Ramah. And Elkanah lay with Hannah his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time Hannah conceived, and he gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. Verse 21. When the man Elkanah went up with all his family to offer the annual sacrifice to the Lord and fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, after the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always. Verse what? Verse 24. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and he brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli, and she said to him, as surely as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his own life he shall be given over to the Lord. And he worshipped the Lord there. Okay, let us read another verse in chapter number 2, verse 18. But someone was ministering before the Lord, a boy wearing a linen ephod. Each year his mother made him a little robe, and he took Eli to him when she went up with her husband to offer the annual sacrifice. Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife, saying, may the Lord give you children by this woman, to take the praise of the one she prayed for and he gave to the Lord. Then they would go home. And the Lord was gracious to Hannah. She conceived, and he gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. Power of vow. Hannah made a vow to the Lord. What happened? Number 1, Eli said in verse 117, Eli answered, go in peace, and may the Lord God of Israel grant you what you have asked for him. Number 1, when you make a vow catches spiritual authority attention. Eli was not there when Hannah was making the vow, but this time Eli saw her and he said, stop drinking alcohol. So meaning vow has the power to catch the attention of a spiritual authority in a spiritual level, even if the man of God is not spiritual. That is key. Number 2, vow breaks barrenness, meaning vows carries conceiving power. Remember, Elkanah had desiring power because he had children with Peninnah. It is Hannah who didn't have a conceiving power. When she made a vow, it developed conceiving ability. When you make a vow, God remembers you. The Bible says, when she made a vow, in verse 19, and the Lord remembered her. Vows prompts God to remember you. So we require a vow. Another thing, vow, when you make a vow to God and you fulfill it, God will always multiply or increase you. Because you have been told, Hannah, when she paid the vow, Eli told her, may God give you sons and daughters in replacement of the one that she gave to God. That is 1 Samuel chapter number 2 and verse 20. And she was able to get 3 other sons and 2 daughters. Meaning, vow is the one that unlocks increasing formula. Vow catches attention of spiritual authorities from a spiritual level, even if the man of God is not spiritual. Vow breaks barrenness and it develops conceiving power. Vow makes God remember you. Vow is the one that unlocks increase formula. Increase formula. The one who was barren, now she has other 3 sons and 2 daughters. Those are 5. Prasamwa 6. Okondo godo godo yari mahanda. Vows are powerful when fulfilled. Can we finish for today? Let us close with Jephthah. Jephthah made a vow in Judges 11. In Judges 11 and verse 13. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord. If you give the Ammonites into my heart, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. Then Jephthah went over to fight the Ammonites with a vow, and the Lord gave them into his heart. He devastated 20 towns from Aroer to the vicinity of Nini, as far as Aberokaramim. Thus Israel subdued Ammon. When Jephthah returned to his home in Mizpah, who should come out to meet him but his daughter dancing to the sound of the tambourines? She was an only child. Except for her, he had made a son, not a daughter. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and cried, "Oh, my daughter, you have made me miserable and wretched, because I've made a vow to the Lord that I cannot break." "My father," she replied, "you have given your word to the Lord. Do to me just as you promised. Now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites, but grant me this one request," and all that. Okay, verse 39. After the 2 months, she returned to her father, and he did it to her as he had vowed, and she was a virgin. When Jephthah made this vow, what did this vow achieve Jephthah? It gave him triumphing ability, subduing power, vengeance powers. He went against the Ammonites. He subdued them. He triumphed them. It is one word. And he avenged himself. And through this vow, Jephthah became the leader of the Gileadites. So meaning vows carries power of triumph, of subdue, of vengeance in the battlefield. A person that enters into the battlefield with a vow, there is no way you can defeat them. And that's a vow to God. Lastly, Genesis 28. Jacob made a vow to God. What through this vow achieved Jacob? Genesis 28 and verse 20. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, "If God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I'm taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house, then the Lord," this is a vow. So vow comes with the conditions. Then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. How many vows did he make? He made three vows that the Lord will become his God. Number two, this pillar will become the house of God. And surprisingly, that is where the temple of Jerusalem was built by Solomon. And number three, he says, I will pay my tithe to God. But he says, this is the outcome of this vow I am making. Number one, presence of God. Number two, protection of God. Number three, provisions of God. Number four, the covering of God. He made a vow. So Jacob was saying, this vow I am making, I am expecting four things. So God, I've made my vow. You will be my God. This will be your house. And I will pay my tithe. But he says this vow must produce four things. He says, if God will be with me, the presence of God. So vows commands God to be with you. Like Jephthah, God went with him into the battle. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him in the power. Number two, he says, and you watch over me on this journey I am taking. Divine protection. Number three, and he give me food to eat. Divine provisions. And he clothes to wear. That is we call spiritual cover. So when you make a vow to God, when you make a vow to God, that vow has the potential and the ability to commit God to be with you. His presence goes with you. Number two, divine protection. Nobody touches you. Number three, vow commands or declares on you divine provisions. You don't experience lack. And number four is what we call spiritual cover. And we clothes to wear spiritual cover. And I'd like to go with you in Genesis that 1 and verse Sigana. And verse 13. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and where you made a vow to me. So this God accompanied him. Now leave this land at once and go back to your native land. If you read Genesis 35, verse 1, then God said to Jacob, go up to Bethel, and he said there, and he built an altar there to God who appeared to you when you are freeing from your brother Esau. Now God is reminding him, go and build the house you made a vow. Did God fulfill the vow? Yes. The man became exceedingly prosperous. This guy, he got a family of 4 wives and 12 children, because by that time Benjamin had not been born, and also made servant and many servants, and also grandchildren, many, totally to about 60 people or so. So God fulfilled the vow. He gave him the best of the food and all those things. God fulfilled the vow. The things that he had decided are there contained in the vow. His presence, God says, I am the God of Bethel. So I am with you here in the house of Rabban. I am the God of Bethel. So God went with him. Number 2, if you read that story, he says, if you can read Genesis that 1, and verse what? And verse 5, he said to them, I see that your father's attitude towards me is not what it was before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I've worked for your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me by changing my wages 10 times. However, God has not allowed him to harm me. Divine protection. It was in the vow. And the food, you know that the story. And then spiritual cover. If spiritual cover, you can read it in Genesis chapter number that 1 and verse And in verse 24, then God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, neither good or bad, spiritual or cover. So God fulfilled the terms of the vow. It was now for Jacob to fulfill his side of the vow by making the Lord his God, by making Bethel a house of God, and by paying the tithing. So meaning vows contains monumental powers that if you do only make them and fulfill them, you will turn around your life within a twinkle of an eye. Like Jacob, he survived with a vow in the house of Laban who wanted to destroy him. Like Jephthah, he defeated the Ammonites by a vow. Like Hannah, she conquered the barrenness by a vow. That, who else did we see? And all those that were able to see to be like Samson was operating under a vow. The day he broke the vow, the day he lost his anointing. Many more we saw that they were operating from the whims and the provisions of a vow. It can be like Absalom. He went back from banishment by a vow he made to the Lord. So you can see we need to come to a place whereby, like Jonah, he was vomited by the fish when he invoked a vow to God. This is a secret that is not given to many because it carries serious repercussions. Do you have vows that you have abdicated, that you have abandoned, that you are not fulfilling? Could that be the reason why you are suffering? That you are suffering? Call me on those numbers that are there. Let me help you how to overcome the battles of vows. We have read them. I'll read you through so that you can reinstitute your relationship with God away from the wrath that comes when you don't fulfill your vows. Do you want to make a vow to the Lord? Call me. Let us make this vow together in a manner that we shall carry on it. We shall pursue it to see it comes to its conclusion, so that it can release the power that it contains, because a vow is a game changer to a person who has stayed in one condition that is addressed and that is unchanging. Make a vow to God, fulfill it, pay it, and see how God will plunge into your life to amaze you by transforming and turning around your life miraculously in the holy mighty name of the Lord Jesus Christ. We do pray and believe. Amen, amen, amen. May the Lord be with you and may the Lord bless you. I declare and declare, may the mercies of God rest upon you, and let the grace of Jesus Christ be on you. In the mighty name of the Lord Jesus Christ. My name is Apostle John Happamy of Amazing Grace of Jesus Christ Center. May God bless you. Shalom.